Welcome back to another night, and tonight's movie is obviously It. Yeah. What'd you think?
This is it. This is one of the best movies ever
This
made.
literally is it. I would not say best movie ever made.
I did say that. I said one of the best movies ever made.
I will say there's so many good shots and so many good effects that I was actually struggling throughout the movie to figure out which one would be my favorite. I want to say the part where he's puppet master to Georgie in the basement,
Mm-hmm.
but there's so many other good scenes that I really don't know. The one where he comes out of the projector in the garage is amazing too.
They're all
And then the
amazing.
dance at the end where they do the motion tracking on his face and everything's moving around it.
They're all
It's
amazing.
just-
There's no bad shot in this movie. It's just...
And Bill Skarsgård, that dude should have won so many awards for his acting in this movie. He was beyond creepy. It was so good. I wanted to look up, I forgot to, but I think when they're in the clown room, I think it was Richie that was stuck in there. I think at one point on one of the pictures in the background, there was the Pennywise from the old It, the Tim Curry version.
Oh, really?
I think so.
I know they were all versions of Pennywise, so...
But yeah, no, there's so much to love about this movie. The only problem I can come up with is that there's another half to the story, and we can get more into that if and when we watch that movie, but it's just... Stephen King is not great at writing endings, and he acknowledges this. He knows it himself. He calls attention to it in half his movies, because a lot of his characters are writers, and he pokes fun at himself by having them be failed writers that can't write endings. But it's a problem of his. And I wish he could do this with more of his stories, where he adapts the first half of the story, because there's always so much build. And I know I'm going on a tangent because I'm talking about the books now, but From a Buick 8 is a book that he wrote. And the whole time, it's building toward this weird alien thing. And the build-up is incredible. And it gets more and more tense and more suspenseful, and you really you know something's coming and you want to keep reading. And then you get to the end, and nothing happens. It's the opposite of a climax. It's nothing. It's such a disappointment. And I feel like a lot of his stories end that way. Which I think is why I love this so much, to bring it back to the movie, is that this ended in the middle of the story at a good spot, and it felt like a good ending. This movie, just as a standalone thing on its own, is great. I love the story all the way through, I love the characters, I love the development and the world building. I love it. I just wish that it wasn't a chapter 1, because that means there's a chapter 2, and that one's going to be not great.
I know this is the 5th or 6th time I've seen this part of this movie. And I've only seen It Chapter 2 once, and that was when we saw it in theaters, so I might as well be going into that brand new, because there are only bits and pieces of it that I remember.
Yeah.
But to say anything about this movie, I mean, never has there been, and never again will there be, a horror movie, a scary movie that's this atmospheric, this well acted, and this well cast, and it's just...
I like a lot of the background details, too.
Just so perfect.
It really feels like what it's like to be just that loser, nerdy kid.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone older than them, and all the adults especially, are just horrible. They have no support system outside of each other. Because, every adult in the movie, every single one that has any lines or any interaction is just awful. And then there's little things in the background, you notice the librarian, looking over the fat kid, whose name I forget, Benny. And then when they're in the park, and they're all sitting in a circle just talking to each other, there's this pair of cops that goes by 3 or 4 times behind them, and at least one of those times, the cops just kind of eyeballing them. It's just these little things that, even in the background, just really set the stage for how much of an outcast they are, and how they're basically just on their own doing everything.
I remember in that carnival scene, when they're in the square, I remember Pennywise being there and floating on a balloon over the statue. Was that a deleted scene? Was it in the movie and not in the Blu-ray?
I don't know.
Because it wasn't in this, and I know I've seen it before.
I would say I wasn't paying that much attention. I wasn't looking for it, so maybe. Although there are deleted scenes that we didn't watch, so it could be one of those.
Because that's what I was waiting for. There was a spot, or maybe that's in the second movie.
Well, there's a second one where he flies over the statue and then the statue comes to life. and
That could be what I'm thinking of, because I remember them in that square. Everybody freezes.
They do go back to the square, and they do have the same statue, and like it's that scene over again. But he's an adult at that point, or maybe he even turns back into the kid. I don't
Okay,
remember.
well then maybe that's what I was thinking.
I've only seen those two.
I was waiting for that in this movie, and it didn't happen. I was like, that. Okay, but either way, it's like one of the 5 favorite movies I've ever seen in my whole entire life. I don't know that I'd pick it to be my first favorite, but it's in the top 5.
I can't give it a perfect 10, but I could give it like a 9.5.
Well, I'm
Like,
giving it a 10. This is a 10 for me.
This is a very incredible movie. Like you said, it's well acted. It has amazing atmosphere. Like everything is just spot on. It's exactly what you'd want. So yeah, this. I mean, obviously, if you're watching this video, you've probably already seen it. Everyone's seen it at this point. So if you're one of the 3 people that somehow hasn't, you really, really should.
And if you have seen it before, watch it again, because it's
that too. This is one that there's definitely rewatchability. I know, like you said, you've seen it 5 or 6 times, and I've seen it at least 2 other times on the Blu-ray, not to mention the theater, which I think I ended up doing twice as well. So this might also be my 5th time, and it's just as fun. I enjoyed it just as much. There's still every time I watch, there's one more little background Easter egg thing that you noticed that you didn't catch the last time. So. It's an incredible movie. It really is.
Yep. And it's got all the feels. It makes you feel all the different feels.
Yeah, I do like
happy, sad, scared,
it's
emotional.
not just straight horror the whole time. Like, there's lots of times where you get, like, the good bonding moments, and there's just, like, some feel-good moments and some happiness and just some funny, like, comedy bits. Like, when they scream rock fight, and then, like, that's just funny.
Like, that was a tense scene, because there was a standoff there, and they did it so well, and then all of a sudden he... what's his name, yells rock fight, and it just turns into a fun, funny laugh.
And the music peps up, and it's just a ridiculous little thing.
Yeah, not many movies can actually pull that off. A lot of movies try to do that, and they kind of fall short, but this one, it actually works in balancing all the emotions.
Yeah, and it doesn't
right,
ruin the
perfectly
tension
well.
either.
No.
Like, when it goes into those other scenes of, like, the romance bit or the happy bit or just the sappy stuff, you don't lose the tension. Like, it can go right back to the tense scene afterward, and you still feel it. Like, you're still in the moment. So even though they change the mood or the atmosphere or whatever the case is, it doesn't pull you out of the movie. You never lose the immersion. So I think that's one of the really... I will say to Stephen King's credit, even though he can't end a story, he can write incredible immersive stories. Where, like, you follow the character and you feel the story in the world. How many of his movies have you seen?
A lot, but I'm talking about the books. I've tried reading many of his books, and I just can't get it. They're so dull.
See, I don't get that at all.
So
his books, to me, read like this movie. Like, they draw you right in. Like, he's so good at explaining the character and the world and everything that you can't not be enveloped in it.
No.
Like, the first time I read Pet Sematary, I think I did the whole book in one sitting. Because, I
credit. I mean, sure, there was a story by Stephen King underneath it all, but I credit all of this to Andy Muschietti and the people who created the movie first and foremost.
I think you're reading
because I mean, look at what they did with the It movie back in the day with Tim Curry. Same story, felt completely different. You know, how many times can you adapt a Stephen King movie and it always could come out different? So it's not Stephen King did this, and that's not why this movie is so good. It's because the director, and the cinematographer, and the actors, and it just all melded together into this one perfect.
So many of his books become hits when they turn into movies, though. I mean, Carrie, and Christine, and Cujo, and Pet Sematary, both times.
Yes.
Shining, Dr. Sleep after Shining, both versions of it. Like, he just
pumps
out hits.
But this one's on a whole nother level. And again, there have been iterations of those things, you know, and this is on a whole nother level. And it's not because of Stephen King, it's because of the Hollywood people.
I think at the base of it, it's still his story, though.
Of course, I'm not arguing that. I've been saying that this whole argument.
I mean,
it's just
I think
Andy Muschietti, the director,
goes his story at the base of it because he still created the world and the character and this tension and everything.
Okay,
like
he created the bottom layer. All
life,
the rest of the 90% is everybody else who come together because it's just so damn good.
That I can agree with.
It's just so damn good. But the book, no.
He's totally wrong. That's great. But yeah, I think that's where we'll end with this one. It's a very good movie, highly recommended. Like I said, 9.5 easily.
10 out of 10. Very rare for a movie to have that for me.
Like I said, I don't know if I can think of any movie I'd give a 10 out of 10. Maybe Liar Liar or Con Air. But even those, I don't know. Those might also be 9.5s.
Like, I can think of
And
this
those
one,
are like my favorite movies.
this one, Jurassic Park, Signs, Back to the Future. Maybe that's... maybe.
Okay, Back to the Future, I could give a 10. That is a movie, we're way off tangent now, but that is a movie I can say is perfect. I have no qualms with anything in that movie. I have no nitpicks. The pacing, the characters, everything 100% perfect. So Back to the Future, that's my 10 out of 10. That's the bar that everything else is trying to hit. This, I'd say, like I said, 9.5. It's close. I don't know what that extra 5% is. I don't know why it's not a 10, but I can't say that it's 100% there.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, you're entitled to your opinion. You're wrong, but you're entitled to it.
Uh-huh. Okay, well, Stephen King's a good horror writer, so. But yeah, tune in tomorrow. We'll do more movies, and that's all we have for this one. So see you then.